To start the recording. Lynn, if you'd take us through the header and any apologies.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. If you hear your name, can you confirm your attendance, please? Councillor Reid.
Here.
Councillor McMahon.
Here, thanks.
Councillor Cowan.
Here.
Councillor Linton.
Here.
Councillor Barton.
Here, thanks, Lynn.
Councillor Douglas.
Here, Lynn.
Councillor Ingram.
Here, thanks, Lynn.
Councillor Maitland.
Here.
Councillor Mabin.
Here, thanks, Lynn.
Councillor Watts.
Good morning, Lynn. I'm here.
Councillor Filson.
Here.
Dr. David Lewis.
Here.
We have an apology this morning from Babs Mowat, as well as Hazel Malacotti. John Semple.
Here, Lynn.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Lynn. And go to the declaration of interest now. Are there any declaration of interest anyone wants to make? Okay, none. So we're going to item 3 then, item 2, sorry, which is medium-term financial strategy setting the 26-27 budget. Over to Joe McLaughlin. Joe.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, members. Chair, this is the budget and council tax setting report for consideration by Cabinet in advance of council meeting tomorrow to discuss and approve the report. The report itself is a culmination of many months of work, and I'm grateful to members for finding time to meet with me and the team during that time to get us to where we are today. The report begins by setting the background to the 2025-26 financial year and sets the scene for both the year ahead, and notes that following publication of the spending plans by both UK and Scottish Government, we changed our assumptions on the level of grant funding we would receive for 26-27, which in turn revised the budget gap for next year downwards to £5 million. The table at paragraph 6 shows how this was distributed to services and our partners, and it's important to note that the protections you give to limit budget cuts to specific services has continued into next year. Paragraph 7 provides background to the financial challenges that services faced during 25-26 and continue to do, and note the specific difficulties within Health and Social Care Partnership. As members know, information on the financial position and the overspend was provided throughout the year as part of the regular East Ayrshire Reforms reports. And the latest position is that the Health and Social Care Partnership is likely to end the year with an overspend of £8.658 million. Members, you recently approved the review of council balances, which set aside £6.537 million into a Health and Social Care emergency balance to support the Health and Social Care Partnership. However, to close the remaining balance, the remaining overspend this year, there is very likely to be a request made prior to the year end for a further financial allocation to be made to the partnership from the general fund uncommitted balance in order to bring the partnership back into a balanced budget position at 31st of March 2026. In advance of that further allocation taking place, the budget report before you today asks to set a council tax level that includes an additional 3% element next year so that we can replenish the general fund uncommitted balance following the draw to the partnership this year. It means that the general fund uncommitted balance, which is a key financial sustainability indicator used by the council and auditors alike, will go back to a level slightly above our 2% minimum target. Paragraph 9 provides a high-level overview of the wider economy and the factors that will likely impact on the council and our services in the coming year. The table at paragraph 11 shows a decline in the local government share of the overall Scottish Government funding pot. And while this remains indicative at this point in time, we should ready ourselves for the potential for our grant funding share to reduce, while also making the case at an officer level for additional funding to be made to protect our services. Paragraph 16 picks up on the Scottish Government financial settlement that took place on the 13th of January, and which contains details of the funding to local government and to the council. It notes that there was an uncommitted element of the revenue grant of around £235 million at an all-Scotland level, and while this was welcomed, it was less than the amount that COSLA had been lobbying for. We also see in that same publication the capital grant to local government is to remain static, which will be a challenge given the aspirations that you have as a council. Paragraph 21 sets out some of the issues that we'll need to be alive to in the coming year. pay award levels, the challenge of maintaining teacher numbers at a time when our school rolls are falling, the end of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the implications this will have for your ambitions around apprenticeships and employability programmes to support the people of East Ayrshire. Paragraph 25 highlights the Council's early intervention and prevention initiative. It notes that a meeting with members, officers and our external advisors will be scheduled in the next few months to review the projects previously approved, discuss the drivers of poverty in our communities, define early intervention and prevention in an East Ayrshire context, and discuss new areas that the 2026-2027 allocation will focus on. Members, at a time of financial constraint, it's also worth highlighting that the budget that Council will be asked to set tomorrow includes some additional financial support for learning transport, recognising the work that colleagues did during 2025, until the additional allocation of £750,000 of recurring funding will help support the education budget in advance of that more detailed work to reduce dependence on taxis for our children and young people, with a move to an alternative transport arrangement that supports additional support for learning and also contributes to the Council's expectations around rural connectivity and transport in and for our villages. Paragraphs 31 through to 41 provide details of our budget modelling assumptions, with paragraph 42 beginning to set the story of the additional recurring support the budget contains for health and social care. The table at paragraph 46 shows the revised financial contribution from the Council to the IJB, together with the additional elements that will be allocated next year and the £404 million of additional recurring funding to support the partnership and the challenges it faces. Paragraph 49 provides details of the grant-aided expenditure movements contained within the settlement we received. And members, whereas these movements tended to be less severe or less important in past years, they have become a new challenge or a new cut to our funding, as our share of the overall local government grant is adjusted downwards to reflect the needs-based approach that is used to determine our GAE. Essentially, members, we are seeing population movements drive pressure on our grant as we lose share to the parts of Scotland that are seeing alternative relative population growth. And sadly, it's very likely that these types of GAE movements will become an annual feature of our settlement and our budget in the years ahead. Details of the GAE movements are shown at the table at paragraph 56. And importantly, the report will ask Council tomorrow to mitigate the adverse impact of a reduction in GAE secondary teaching of £360,000, given the challenges of managing a reducing national resource and alongside a population role that is falling relative to other parts of Scotland, and the need to maintain teacher numbers. Members, you know that the budget strategy report presented to you in October highlighted the need to make efficiencies or cuts of £5 million to balance next year's budget. The report before you today notes two important things. Firstly, the budget to be approved tomorrow removes the target of £1.892 million that had previously been allocated to the Integration Joint Board in order to give health and social care colleagues the very best start we possibly can for the next year. Secondly, a number of services met more than their target, meaning that the adjusted budget gap of £3.108 million has been exceeded by £183,000, and I'm grateful to colleagues for this collegiate approach. The spending allocations for next year are at paragraph 63. The table shows that the 2026-2027 budget is balanced, with expenditure equalling income, and importantly, that the total income of £460.943 will be allocated to our services in its entirety. The report then provides details of the budget engagement, and more details are contained at Appendix 4. Importantly, the Council's resilience indicators, as at 2024-25, begin at paragraph 73 and show an increase in our usable reserves, and also show that both the education and the social care ratios continue to increase. The report seeks approval for a Council tax increase of 8% to safeguard services next year, and it's important to note that the proposed 8% increase includes that 3% uplift in order to replenish the general fund balance for the draw to health and social care. Chair, Cabinet is asked to recommend this report and the points and recommendations at paragraph 2 on page 3 to Council tomorrow. And I'm happy to stop there, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. This is a really important day for Cabinet. It's important the Cabinet has a look at this, but it would be my intention to note the recommendations for consideration to the Council to tomorrow's meeting, where we can have a full discussion on that. But members, if any questions, can I just, before I pass it on to questions, just thank Joe and his team for all the hard work and the service directors for not just meeting their targets, but achieving more than that. And that's not an insignificant task for them to do. And I think we're all grateful for that. But with that, colleagues, members, any questions, comments? Councillor Cowan.
Thanks, Chair. I'm full agreement to take this forward to tomorrow's main discussion with the full council. I just have a quick question on paragraphs 27, 28, which relate to the changes from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund into the new Local Growth Fund. Obviously, there's reduced funds there, and there's a change of the allocation, the share from capital to revenue. And I know that it's saying there that the finance team are working at pace to understand the impact of that. But as it's going to impact possibly permanent staff and our jobs and training initiative, is there a timeline for that? And my assumption is once you know what that impact is, we will have a future Cabinet report on that detail.
And through your Chair, I think that's a really important point, and I'll liaise with David to make sure that the report on that is brought forward. It is really important because it is not a continuation, it's the end of Shared Prosperity, and the Growth Fund is an entirely new approach, a new initiative, so it has no connectivity back the way as well. But happy to take that forward.
Thanks, Joe. Councillor Wattsdale.
Thank you. Yeah, I would also like to express my thanks to Joe and his excellent finance team for all the hard work they have done in completing this year's budget to this stage. It's been, and we know, very difficult and challenging to get to here. I do have a question for Linda. I've got concerns regarding the £730,000 budget staffing savings within the education part of the budget. Can I ask her if she is concerned that it may impact over the next year our hard-working teaching assistants and possibly even impact the support learning within our schools?
Thanks, Councillor Watson, and through you, Leader. The 730 in saving number 7, Councillor Watts, thank you for raising that. Clearly, we want to try and achieve that via turnover, and therefore, absolutely, the aspirations around that particular saving are no impact on the young people concerned. But clearly, you are aware of the current restrictions around about teacher numbers, and I know that's part of your question to me this morning, Councillor Watts. So ultimately, vis-a-vis the full package around about the 1.7 million in totality, we very much want to try and achieve the 730 via more natural occurring opportunities to do so, or visit turnover as expressed in the saving itself, but at the same time trying to afford that level of protection that we're required to do around about those that are employed as permanent classroom assistants, because we absolutely fundamentally both value the contribution of our teaching staff, but also that of our classroom assistants. So that's going to be a watching brief on that one, Councillor Watts, in that particular regard, and I really do thank you for raising that aspect. But to say the current restrictions are playing a part within all of that, clearly, but ultimately we would seek to achieve that via other means. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. I think that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, can we agree to note the recommendations and to be heard at tomorrow's council? Thank you. Thanks very much, everyone. Okay, the next item is Andrew Kennedy, and it's building a future East Ayrshire asset management framework and capital investment. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides an update on our asset management framework and capital investment programme. It sets out progress to date, highlights a number of financial pressures and and recommends actions to ensure the overall programme remains affordable within the current 5-year spending allocation. As Joe has indicated with the budget paper, this report will also be taken forward to Council tomorrow. Members appreciate the report provides a significant level of detail and the recommendations focus on specific project areas to continue to meet the ongoing challenges. However, I also want to emphasise the wider aspects of the overall investment plan. Members will be aware that the Council is committed to delivering more than £1 billion worth of capital investment over the last 15 years, but the environment we are operating in is now extremely challenging. Construction inflation, higher borrowing costs, other revenue pressures and continued volatility in the market have all impacted on capital plans. Tender prices have risen markedly and future projections suggest continued pressure. As a result, several major projects are now reporting unavoidable increases in cost. However, in line with the revenue budget and the Treasury Management Plan being presented to Council tomorrow, all of this must be managed prudently while maintaining the Council's agreed limit of capital financing costs not exceeding 8% of the general fund revenue stream. Despite these pressures, we continue to see substantial investment and alignment with the Council's strategic plan, supporting economic growth, tackling poverty, improving well-being, investing in our young people and progressing towards a more sustainable future. The asset management framework remains central, ensuring we deliver best value, rationalise our estate and maintain assets that are safe and fit for purpose. This strategic approach has ensured effective oversight and governance, clear and managed project delivery, alignment with strategic objectives and successfully attracting external funding. The recent best value thematic audit undertaken by the Improvement Service has provided positive external validation and recognises the Council's well-established approach, with no areas for improvement highlighted. This report will be presented to the Governance and Scrutiny Committee next week. The report in front of you sets out specific recommendations to address £18.9 million worth of pressures. However, that is within the context of over £250 million of continued investment over the next 5 years. In the next 12 months, the programme will see over £100 million of investment on site, with an extension at Stewarton Academy, the Ayrshire Growth Deal projects at Moorfield and in Cumnock, the Palace Theatre Grand Hall upgrade, active travel connections across Kilmarnock linking the Foregate and the North-South Infinity Loop routes, implementing changes in our waste collection arrangements, ongoing investment in roads, fleet, ICT, housing grants and property refurbishment. A first phase of works at Doon Valley campus, and addressing ASN needs and growth across our education estate, as well as housing upgrades across the area and further new builds in Cumnock. Members, I don't want to go into all of the detail in the report, but I would like to highlight some of the key points. Within our learning estate, which continues to be the largest single area of capital investment, St Sophia's Primary School has now been completed and is the first NRFIT certified school in the UK, and Comores Primary School is also progressing on site to refurbish and integrate the dining in the main building. There are additional pressures on these projects which have been previously noted to Cabinet and obviously are wrapped up within this overall funding package. A substantial programme of additional support needs improvements is underway in development, and further proposals linked to the ASN report that's being presented today will also be progressed. Modular classrooms, refurbishments and changes to internal layouts across several schools will be delivered before the new term, with longer term solutions also being developed within existing allocated budgets. We recognise there remains future challenges, and budget allocations are in the programme for Laneshaw Primary School in North West Kilmarnock to meet future demands. With a range of complex challenges and competing demands, it is proposed further prioritised investment plans will be provided at a future Cabinet through the Learning Estate Management Plan. Turning to wellbeing, leisure and culture, members will be aware that Cultural Kilmarnock project has encountered considerable cost pressures due to the structural and heritage-related issues identified by the project. These include timber decay, concealed defects and areas of asbestos beyond what was initially anticipated. To continue safely and compliantly, the budget requires to be increased to £34 million in total. This is an additional 1.5 more than was reported in June 2025. I also want to fully be transparent reporting to members, and as has previously been recognised, further risks remain until all areas are fully opened up. The programme also recognises the balance between immediate pressures and longer-term aspirations, and therefore allocations have been made towards essential works at the Garley and Ice Rink, while retaining the wider allocation subject to ongoing assessment of options. We continue to progress the Merlin Park project, and feasibility for Wood Road Park has also been progressed following commitment last year. Investment to meet growth in Cumnock Cemetery, where capacity will be reached within the next 2 to 3 years, is also recommended. It's also recognised that future bid for funding for the Wallace Chambers and Dick Institute redevelopment remains important. However, with other priorities, the allocation has been reduced, with a commitment to explore other alternative funding sources. Within economic growth, members should note that the Ayrshire Innovation Park at Muirfield is now forecasting an overspend of up to £5 million. This is primarily due to abnormal ground conditions, extensive earthworks, and the need for major on- and off-site works, including utility upgrades, combined with unfunded inflation. A further report will be brought forward to set out how these pressures will be managed within the Ayrshire Growth Deal, as any project changes require approval from the UK and Scottish Government. Meanwhile, the 6 demonstrator projects within the core renewable energy programme are now underway, including housing retrofit, car clubs and vocational training programmes. Town centre regeneration continues with progress at the Foregate Civic Space, Post Corner and the wider master planning work that will incorporate a number of council projects with wider investment opportunities. Within infrastructure, rollout of the Waste Services Review will begin in the summer, with all new bins delivered and new collection model fully in place by March 2027. Works at Garlath and Western Road depots are progressing well. Due to structural damage at Gauchland Salt Dome, it must be demolished and replaced at a cost of around £500,000. Future allocations of the Roads and Bridges Fund have been reduced to cover the cost and keep the programme affordable. The Infinity Loop project continues to progress through detailed design, with Sustrans Transport Scotland fully supporting the project costs so far. But increased match funding requirements mean the Council's existing allocation may not be sufficient to deliver the full scope, and a further update will be provided to members once the national funding decisions are known. The projects noted in this report focus on the major general fund projects and the 4 strategic asset types. The housing investment and strategic housing investment plans should be noted are recognised also sit under the asset management framework principles, and although reported separately at Cabinet in November each year, are also incorporated in terms of overall budget and treasury management position. But they also demonstrate further investment across our communities. Across the programme, we've highlighted £18.9 million of additional cost pressures, and to balance these increases, the report identifies the full £18.9 million of savings and reallocations across contingency budgets, economic regeneration, growth deal projects, component renewal, ICT, fleet and energy efficiency budgets. These measures are essential to keep the programme within the 5-year affordability target and to remain within the 8% borrowing cap. Chair, members, despite a very challenging financial backdrop, the capital programme continues to deliver ambitious investment across East Ayrshire, improving our learning estate, community leisure and wellbeing facilities, economic growth and jobs, infrastructure and housing. The adjustments recommended in this report are necessary to keep the programme deliverable, sustainable and aligned to those strategic priorities. As noted, further updates will be provided on specific project areas to future cabinets, and progress will continue to be reported regularly as part of East Ayrshire Performs. As Joe has also indicated, the recommendations are put forward to Council's consideration tomorrow. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Andrew. An excellent comprehensive report. Just welcome the positive engagement we have and as we referred to in item 14 and also in 11. But I'm just wondering, I know that these discussions are taking place just now regarding the Belfield interchange and the A76, which is a major issue for us, and it's the report's silent on it, and I think we should be saying something about it, and we should have a further report on it. I think we've mentioned this before, but absolutely, we should use those relationships. We've got a ministerial visit coming up, and we need to press the case at every opportunity, because that unlocks so much in terms of for the local economy right across all of East Ayrshire. And I think that's something we really need to put a marker down there and maybe add that to the recommendations. And Andrew.
I think obviously from discussions of the last couple of cabinets, then that's certainly something that's an area. Certainly we can add the recommendation to come back to provide some information, developing feasibility options around that. But recognising obviously the challenges of the overall capital investment.
Absolutely, but I think we just need to put a wee marker down there. Councillor Barton Graham.
Thanks, Leader. Andrew, huge paper. I think for me it's split into two themes. It's basically the realism of the volatility of the market at the moment and the financial pressures we find ourselves in as a council. And also, but as you highlighted, there's the positive aspects of the delivery of the capital programme. One of the recommendations we've been asked here is the report is asking us to agree that the strategic principles within the asset management framework remains the basis of future investment priorities. I totally agree with this, but I think it's absolutely essential. The reality of where we are is, it's extremely clear within the report in regards to our future debt forecasts and our repayments. Definitely limiting large scale borrowing and maximising external funding opportunities is absolutely the way forward. And I think if we look at the appendix, at the green defined projects, I think look there, there's £154 million in the total budget. Almost 80 million of that has been achieved through external funding, and this is an avenue we really need to push, because the council can't fund all of our projects. We need that external funding. I'd also say developers, they also need to play a larger part in terms of financially contributing, improving a strained local infrastructure in terms of school capacities and infrastructure first. Andrew, you mentioned the fact that there's been £1 billion capital programme over the last 15 years. Absolutely, maintaining their existing assets and ensuring they're fit for purpose, definitely a priority. In terms of rationalisation, that's something we should be absolutely managing, looking at the management of our estate wisely, making use of the space. And if a building's surplus to requirements, it needs to go, or we find another community use for it. And when we look at the report, I think we can take comfort in this approach. It's been clearly and utterly validated by the recent improvement service thematic best value review, which I believe, Andrew, maybe you can clarify, that's an external view with no recommendations, I think. But that's the realism part. But as you said, Andrew, there's a lot of positivity there. Although we're operating in that volatile construction market and financial constraints, when we look at that appendix, there's a whole load of infrastructure projects, a capital programme to be delivered across the whole authority, right through to 2031. So this council's got a lot to be proud of in that respect. So I'm happy for the recommendation to go forward to council tomorrow.
That's good. Andrew, do you want to comment at this stage?
Yeah, maybe just picking up the point in terms of the thematic best value audit that was undertaken by Improvement Service. So yes, that is obviously something that's right across Scotland for all local authorities. As I said, the report will be presented to Governance and Scrutiny next week by Improvement Service. So again, that maybe gives us an opportunity to get some further feedback from them.
Thanks, Andrew. Councillor Maybe Linda.
Thanks, Leader. Andrew, just a wee bit of clarification around Merlin Park. I know that we've now went with Alliance Leisure to try and get things moving, but I know there's been delay after delay after delay, but can you give me any indication as to where we are with the last agreed timescale?
Maybe just ask Simon to come in just on the detail of the project.
Yeah, thanks through you, Chair. Yeah, as noted in the report, we've engaged with Alliance Leisure to help take this project forward. Had some positive meetings with them, and they have provided some sort of additional ideas for the project, which have been well received. They're looking at cost estimates and programme just now, so it's probably a wee bit premature of me to kind of try and preempt what that might look like in terms of the specific delivery of the project. But, you know, I would hope that we'd be getting on site with the project obviously during the course of this year, and hopefully round about summertime. But once we have more feedback from the consultants around about the cost estimates and the programme, then we can certainly share that with members to provide more information.
Thanks, Simon. Linda.
Thanks, Leader. Thank you, Simon. Can I just ask that myself and the other ward members are kept updated, because it's quite a contentious issue within the village. So every time we go to community councils or groups, that we're always getting asked. So it'd be really good if we can get sort of regular updates as to where we are with it.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable request. Yeah. Yeah, okay, we'll accept that. Councillor Cowan, Elaine.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's really helpful to have this report and followed by the next item on the ESL provision. So my comments actually sort of straddle these two papers. I'm obviously fully supportive of teaching the children in their own communities as close to home as possible. And obviously if we can reduce any need for transportation as well, that's an excellent direction of travel for us to be on. And I'm very pleased to see paragraph 68 actually outlines some of the specific investment into some of those ASN facilities. But at this point, I just really want to remind officers of my request last year that I want to go and see these facilities, not purely from an education perspective, but from that associated support, the infrastructure that's around it, the space, the outdoor space, and any building adaptations. But I appreciate, Andrew, that you've highlighted that in paragraph 68. But so just reminding about my idea for the site visits, please. Thank you.
I think that'd be good if we could extend that to the full cabinet. Barry, is it on that point? Is it?
Thank you, Leader. Just, I think I've mentioned that a number of times in this chamber, and as has Councillor Cowan, and I absolutely support her in this regard. I think it would be something we, in general, to see our school estate with appropriate ward members, if necessary. But I do think it would be good for the cabinet to get out to see, and actually, let's have our cabinet meetings maybe in some of these buildings at the same time while we're out and about. Always good to get out and about and see what's actually happening across East Ayrshire. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Dawes. Councillor Watts, Neil.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Andrew, for this report. It really does show the great work that the council is delivering here in East Ayrshire. I would just like to highlight a couple of things from myself, which are the free school meals expansion. It's fantastic that we're doing 10,500 meals a day. And I think that's an amazing achievement for our school catering teams to be achieving. Well done. The expansion of the Cumnock Cemetery plans that are in the plan here, I'm sure that will be welcomed by the community. The Wood Road Park feasibility study, I have seen the first draft as other elected members in my ward of this feasibility study, which we agreed to do last year. I must say that what I have seen absolutely blew me away. And if we can achieve the ambitions within that study, it will be fantastic for the Cumnock community and the south of East Ayrshire as a whole. I look forward to seeing the finished report, and I'd like to say a big thank you to Anna Cavril and Simon Bell for their hard work in getting that feasibility study together. It's great to have an update on the Greenmore Primary buildings and where we are with the demolition on those. I must admit, I am dismayed that we will be losing an historic building within the town, but it will obviously make the area safer and better, because the building really is an eyesore now. I still have concerns, to be fair, over a couple of the core projects, namely the car and bike clubs. I still have concerns with that. To be honest, I do think, I'm not sure whether it will work. I hope I'm wrong, and it will, but we shall wait and see. And obviously the update to the waste review model. It's good to see that the rollout will start in Cumnock and the South from May. So, but no, Andrew, thank you for this report.
Thank you. Andrew, do you want to come back with anything? Are you okay? Councillor Linton.
Thanks very much, Leader. And it was just really to endorse the point made by my colleague Councillor Cowan and also Councillor Douglas. I think it's a great idea that we get in, given the significance of the support, we need to get this right for the start. And I would maybe go further than Elaine had suggested, and maybe revisit some of the existing additional support centres, just to get an idea of, did we get it right first time? What things could we have did a bit better? We have to learn as we go along.
That's it. Eddie.
Thanks, Leader. And absolutely, we can arrange visits. If full cabinet's going, I would suggest we maybe programme during Easter holidays or something like that, when, all the children are around, but members going and actually physically seeing, because myself, Linda, I'm out there all the time in the schools, and actually seeing the buildings actually gives you a much better vision of that. But maybe if members agree, we'll maybe plan that, so we're not disrupting the children as well, maybe during Easter holidays or something.
So, good suggestion, Eddie. Yeah. That's a plan. Okay. Councillor Pilson-Drew.
Thanks, Chair. Just a wee comment there and a concern. The 500,000 taken away from the bridges and culvert reduction. I just hope this does. I understand that the roof will need fixed at Galtman, but I just hope this doesn't affect our major roadworks in the Doon Valley that I keep going about. The 713 culvert at Polnesson and the Cold Glen slip, 11 years, and the traffic lights are on £26,000. I just hope this doesn't have an effect on that and any more delays caused by that. But I've had assurances from the Deputy Chief Executive that these works will go ahead this year.
Thanks, Drew. I don't think it's any harm just to have further reassurances on that, because we're Andrew.
Yeah, I think just in terms of the realignments within the programme, the Roads and Bridges programme is the full 5-year programme, and we've taken the £500,000 out of the £35 million programme that's there. The specific projects that you mentioned are already programmed and obviously are all planned for the coming months.
That's great, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Drew. Okay, if there's I saw a hand up, no. If there's nobody else, can we agree the recommendations with that we changed to include, I mentioned the Belfield interchange in 76. Okay, thanks, colleagues. The item 4, which is update on review of additional support needs. Who's presenting this? Linda.
Yes, good morning, members, and through you, Leader, I'm delighted to present this report to you this morning in respect of an update on provisions for additional support for learning. You'll recall that we were with you back in June 2025 with a start to said update, and we advised that we'd be back in due course with firmer plans. So I'm delighted to hand over to Julie McCulloch, Strategic Education Manager for Inclusion, who will take you through the report. Thanks very much, Leader.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Linda. Good morning, members. This report provides Cabinet with an update on the review of additional support needs ASM provision agreed in June 2025 and sets out recommendations to strengthen the long-term sustainability of additional support for learning provision in response to growing demand and increasing complexity of need. There are 3 recommendations as outlined in paragraph 2. Cabinet agrees to rename the Grange Hearing Impaired Department to the Grange Deaf Education Centre in keeping with more updated language. 2, agree to establish 3 new primary ASL centres, initially as classes at neither Robertland, neither 3rd and New Milnes primary schools ahead of formal consultation for permanency. And 3, agree to reprofile East Ayrshire support team, known as EAST, in line with the proposed model described in paragraphs 13 to 26. Paragraphs 3 and 4 identify the background to the report, with the table at paragraph 4 providing an overview of current ASL provision by education group. From paragraph 5, we outlined the rationale for change. Our current dedicated ASL centre coverage is uneven across education groups, resulting in some children travelling significant distances for specialist support, which can adversely affect engagement, wellbeing and local peer relationships, whilst increasing pressures on capacity, staffing and transport costs. To strengthen locality provision, as laid out in paragraphs 9 to 11, the report proposes establishing 3 new primary additional support for learning classes and clarifies progression pathways across education groups, including how placement decisions will reflect locality-based inclusion and, where necessary, profound and complex health needs requiring more specialist settings. The updated locality pathways are summarised for each education group in paragraph 12. Moving on to paragraphs 13 to 17, the report identifies proposals to reprofile the work of East Ayrshire support team to improve alignment of staffing and expertise within the redesigned staged intervention model described at Appendix 1. This will ensure we are better able to meet the complexities of need and address the requirement to offer enhanced support within mainstream schools at both universal and targeted levels. Head teachers will be empowered to direct support where it is most needed within the context of their own schools and where appropriate education group. Paragraph 18 references the range of engagement activity undertaken in advance of the proposals being presented formally today, while the table at paragraph 19 outlines options for East staff, with arrangements for the proposed staff preference exercise referenced from paragraphs 20 to 23, noting colleagues opting to transfer into schools as teachers with a focus on additional support needs will continue to be funded centrally. From paragraph 24, we reference the current East provision, which would continue to be delivered centrally, including support for our statutory services, such as visual impairment, English as an additional language and hospital education. We're also looking to retain the expertise of current East principal teachers who would become part of the central inclusion team. Paragraph 26 references the continued expansion and success of the skills and learning model alongside the proposed development of new ASL classes, noting alignment with a locality-based model. Implications of the report can be found from paragraph 27, with the HR implications confirming paragraph 31. There would be no redundancies linked to the proposals. An equality impact assessment has been submitted as referenced in paragraphs 32 and 33. Financial and risk implications are referenced in paragraphs 34 to 35. We note that funding already allocated via capital investment programme will be reprofiled to meet the estate recommendations noted in this paper and will be agreed and governed through the Learning Estate Programme Board and the Capital Programme Strategic Oversight Board. Overall, the proposals seek to improve equity of access, reduce reliance on distant placements, strengthen inclusive practice in education establishments, and ensure staffing and estate planning remain sustainable as we strive to meet the needs of learners with additional support needs. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Any questions? Councillor Maven Linda.
Thanks, Leader. Thanks, Julie. Can I take you to page 94? I've got a couple of questions. First one is paragraph 21. Just got a couple of concerns surrounding the statement relating to staff that were interviewed and were unsuccessful. So bearing in mind that these staff have chosen to go into this more specialised type of teaching, it would just worry me that if they weren't to be successful and then end up in a job that they don't choose to be in, where it says like to redeploy into school as class teachers, could that possibly have an impact on their own morale or, more importantly, on the way that they're teaching the kids? The other question is paragraph 25, when you're talking about the various types of teams, are there any staff who would be able to homeschool for even a short period of time any young people that don't come into these categories, but for whatever reason, whether it be like physical or not physical, that they can't attend at school? Would there be anybody that would be in a position to be sent out to offer a bit of teaching and support at home?
Thanks, Councillor Mabin. So I'll pick up the first issue and I'll pass to Ian. So in paragraph 21, it's very much through standard redeployment procedures in that regard. So, you know, it's very much been the case that we've sought to protect staff posts in terms of the full remodel. But clearly what we can't anticipate is how many staff will go for each category of post, and it's a process that's ongoing. But given that he's been organising the full process, I'll just pass through to Ian Burgoyne, the Assistant Director of Education. Councillor Mabin will take you through probably the back end of that response, but also the question in respect of home contact in terms of homeschool.
Thanks, Linda, and through you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Mabin. Paragraph 21 refers specifically to the schools and learning centres, and the reason that there would be the potential of oversubscription is because the numbers of teachers and teacher vacancies there will be quite low, because that delivery is mainly provided through our employability teams. So it's actually to do with a finite number of vacancies. We're hoping and expecting that the staff who do opt for that will be a fairly small number of staff. The second part of your question, again, would be dependent really on the school and the head teacher. You know, if it's something they felt was appropriate, they felt could be effective, then that would be a discussion they could have with the staff member. But certainly there's nothing within the paper that would formalise that. But certainly that is hoping if there was a discussion within the school.
I think Councillor County, Ellen.
Thank you, Chair. As I previously said, my comments on the previous paper, obviously I'm fully supportive of anything that keeps the children in their own communities and educates them as close to home. So I'd like to thank the education colleagues for bringing this paper on as a follow-up to last June's paper. I just want to bring elected members and officers' attention to paragraph 29, where there is a reference to the UNCRC. Officers can keep me right. I think this might be the first time we've had a reference in a particular cabinet paper in that way. So I'm really pleased to see that, and I'm really pleased that education are leading on that. Perhaps a stretch target for other departments is to start looking at UNCRC and the work that they do. And I know there's been conversations and activities, especially in places like housing. So it'd be good if we can start to elevate some of that work. And obviously, I'm very pleased to see paragraph 29, but it still is a wee bit too passive for my liking. I'm looking at you, Eddie, for this one. So the more we can actually drill it down into the actual specific articles and how they direct the work of the council, especially when we're setting policies, that would be a stretch ambition for the future for me. I believe Sina Curry is leading the work on that, but if we can get that as visible and transparent to people as much as possible, that would be my ask. Thank you.
I think that's quite a good suggestion. Just with that, in terms of when we see the risk applications are really stark, in terms of potential breach of statutory responsibilities if we don't allow children to be educated within their own communities, and that falls within the UNCRC. And that's, we keep reminding our main ministers constantly, whether at COSLA and the rest of it, when we're concentrating on other levels. But the school rules are falling East Ayrshire, but the challenges for her are no less, because we see increasing ASL roles right across East Ayrshire, and that's a major financial challenge for us. And I think there's got to be some recognition of that. We've got to keep pushing that. Councillor Lutney.
Thanks very much again, Leader. I couldn't agree more with you and Councillor Cowan's comments earlier. I think, as we saw in the previous paper, a push towards investment in the estate. I think it's every bit as important we get the staffing, appropriate staffing around this as well at the same time. We really owe it to these young people to get this right.
Thanks. Something we bring in, Eddie.
So around UNCRC, I think Councillor Cowan knows that East Ayrshire had the opportunity to present to the national programme on Monday through COSLA. So I know Sina was joined by education colleagues, housing colleagues, vibrant communities colleagues, in the model that we have of what we call a champions board. So every service nominates someone who's a champion for that and actually then works across, as be seen as best practice across the country. And in terms of the overall leadership, I also done a video input to that as well. So I think that is, you know, really important in terms of what we do. I think this is about how do we engage, you know, the rights of children and the wider human rights as business as normal. You know, rather than seeing it as addition to everything we do, it's just how we engage it in what we do. And, you know, again, I was with Linda, with the new Chief Executive of Qualification Scotland, down visiting, you know, SL33 earlier in the week, and they were totally blown away by that inclusion, you know, that we have there and how we see things drawn together. In the wider paper, our challenge from our external advisors is always, how do you take all these good things and actually make them mainstream? And that's our big challenge. How do we take that and actually mainstream these rights, you know, into our business as normal in terms of what we're doing? But, you know, absolutely, you know, taking forward UNCRC and our model of requiring to be reporting on UNCRC, I think we will be breaking down into individual, you know, clauses of that and actually saying what we're doing in these half a dozen, say, you know, to start with and building on that.
Thanks, Eddie. Elaine?
So just a wee quick follow-up. Myself and Councillor Ingram were at the Care Experience Cabinet last night, and a member of Sina's team was there just to explain to the children what they're going to look at building up some of their departmental plans, and asking the children to be involved from the start, where previously perhaps we would have had plans and presented them and then asked people for input. They wanted to see them as an integral part of that, and that was really well received. And the Care Experience Cabinet, the young children, I think the eldest person on that's maybe in 21, but there's a lot younger children on that cabinet as well. The request came from them that they had a standalone session, a workshop on that. So it just shows that our young people are very progressive and very willing to get involved when opportunities are made available to them.
That's quite encouraging, isn't it? Really good to hear. Okay, anyone else? Oh, Councillor Watts. No.
Thanks, Leader. No, I fully support this additional support needs provision paper. I totally agree and fully endorse what Councillor Cowan has said. It's very important that we bring that in across the council for the young people. And, you know, fully support the report. I think it's excellent that one of the centres will be in Netherford, within my area, and that certainly will take the pressure off of the Barony campus. So, yeah, fully support this. Thank you.
Thanks, okay, Councillor Barton.
Thanks, Leader. I mean, local provision, it's something I've been beating the drum since I was elected. Linda knows it's something close to my heart, and I really welcome the fact that this is coming in. Thank you very much for that. But as the Chief Exec, you mentioned the right word, inclusion. Every single one of your young people has the ability to thrive. It's just getting that right environment. Now, I've had that with my own son. I'm not going into detail about it, and he is thriving in these there. So thanks to the work that Linda and her team are doing. So I'd just like to say thanks for that.
Thanks very much, Graham. That's good to hear. Okay, can we, if there's no other comments or questions, can we agree the recommendations? Okay, thanks for that. And that's the end of the education items. We'll give the education colleagues just a minute to leave the meeting. Okay, on to item 5, and that's the Health and Social Care Partnership, Social Care Contribution and Charging Framework, and approved charges for 26-27, and that's Fiona Hart. Fiona.
Thanks, Chair. So this is the annual report in respect to the social care uplift. In terms of delegation, the Council's got responsibility for setting the charges in the IGIB for approving provider rates. There'll be a mirrored report as presented to the IGIB on the 19th of March to approve the rates. Means tested social care charges are driven by the uprating in national guidance, and this report details the inflationary adjustments to the framework and also seeks approval to increase thresholds for income disregards. A summary of the frameworks in paragraphs 11 to 24, but to highlight, in respect to the calculation for annual personal budgets, the weekly indicative home care hour rate is currently £23.08, and that takes account of national guidance in relation to the adult social care pay uplift. The rate for 26-27 is under the review, and it will be uplifted following further guidance for the Scottish Government, and that will be presented to the IGIB for approval. The non-residential care charges are in paragraphs 25 to 33. Specifically in paragraph 26 is a proposal to increase the framework for the means tested maximum charge to £142.90 per week. Threshold levels and calculation of income increase in line with DWP benefits and also the COSLA guidance. And the thresholds are based on the minimum benefits a person would be entitled to, and there's an additional 25% buffer on top of that. And the details of the thresholds are in Table 1. If an individual's got income below the threshold, there'll be no contribution other than any flat rate charges that they might have. And also to account for disability-related expenditure, the Council also sets a rate of disregarded income above the thresholds, and it's proposed that that's maintained at 40%, and that means the individual would be charged up to 60% of their income over that threshold. Appendix 1, that shows various benefit levels in the new proposed thresholds, but importantly, the last column shows the income that an individual would be left with after they had been charged. Table 2 is the proposed flat rate uplift charges. Blue badges would remain at £20 as that's the maximum that the Scottish Government allows us to charge for them. Charges for daycare would increase to £4.40, community alarm to £5.75, access to funds and corporate appointeeship would increase to £6.05 in the community and £3.65 if they're in a care home. Paragraphs 32 and 33 provides the uprated indicative unit costs, and that's in relation to costing an individual's self-directed support personal budget. And it's also proposed that the subsidy for meals is maintained at £1.02 per meal. Paragraphs 35 to 37 indicate that work's currently ongoing in relation to the social care uplifts, and also agreements still to be reached in respect to care homes. The starting point for those is the cost model assumptions in the annual social care pay uplift for providing direct care. It's recommended that the increase takes place for the first full billing period after the 1st of April. And it's the uncertainty around the care home fees represents a financial risk as these placements are all procured externally. And just to conclude, agreements requested in recommendations in paragraph 2. Happy to take questions.
Thanks, Fiona. Councillor Maitland-Cliff.
Thank you very much. An excellent paper. And I just draw everyone's attention, please, to paragraph 13 and 14, because this explains what the framework is based on. And we heard earlier about human rights now being involved. So this is very much a fair paper that puts people at the heart of this. And I'm pleased to see that services, I think the public should know this, that services will be provided in accordance with service users, assess needs and not on their ability to pay. So thank you very much, and I recommend the paper.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, can we agree the recommendations? Okay, and our final items, the commissioning and contracting arrangements, health and social care partnership, and is it Craig?
Yeah, thanks, Chair and morning members. Eric had hoped to present this himself, but he's stuck in traffic, so he's just texted to say unfortunately he's not going to make it. So unfortunately you've got me to take us through the paper. So over the last number of years we've tried to summarise and bring this report as concisely as possible. We used to have separate reports for all the various different contracts, so hopefully you see it as helpful in terms of bringing it together in this single place. So this outlines some of the commissioning and contracting arrangements for 26-27. It follows that established format over the last couple of years for new extended contracts come to an end, and those that have been retendered over the forthcoming financial year. There are 11 relevant contracts outlined within the report, set out at paragraph 3 with some details in the appendix. It's worth just noting the third-party contract values in the region of £69 million for the partnership, so an awful lot of what we do is delivered by our partner providers. The report clearly links the commission arrangements back into the strategic plan for 21 to 30, and that's outlined at paragraph 6 within the report. In paras 8 to 10, it looks at the new arrangements within those paragraphs related to a justice unpaid work tender to give security over a 2+1+1 period, and for unpaid carer support services in line with the new carer strategy that was recently approved by the IJB. New arrangements are also referred to in here in relation to the development of a flexible commissioning framework for alcohol and drug services, and the team are working closely with procurement colleagues to establish that and see what we can do that's just a wee bit different from previously. Extensions are referred to at paragraphs 11 through to 14 in relation to supported accommodation for adults, looking to extend to conclude work here, extend current contractual arrangements to conclude work here following a number of vacancies that appeared just in the last number of months in relation to commissioning officer complement across the partnership. Similarly for the Andrew Nisbet Place supported accommodation provision, looking for a short extension there to the end of June 2026 to allow those tenders to complete appropriately. It's also proposed to extend ADP commissioned advocacy services to enable the integration of that into the broader advocacy specification, again just to streamline stuff and make it as effective as possible going forward, and that extension is sought to the end of March 2027 to align effectively to that broader piece of work. There are some contractual arrangements that are coming to an end and not being re-tendered. Those are outlined at paragraphs 15 to 16, relate to Children's First Family Wellbeing Service and the digital platforms of Cooth and Mind of My Own, and the relevant providers have been notified of that intention not to renew those contracts. Re-tendering applies to a number of services as well, outlined at paragraphs 17 to 19 in relation to the supply and installation of handrails, which will be issued by the end of the current financial year, and support for people with dementia, where necessary processes, etc., will be concluded by the end of next financial year, so by March of 2027. As I said at the start, the contractual and summary actions that are discussed within the report are summarised at Appendix 1. There are no major implications of note from paragraph 20 onwards. The relevant equality screening, etc., has been undertaken for those commission arrangements, and those have been published in accordance with the EQIA processes, and the recommendations for Cabinet are outlined and captured at, bear with me, paragraph 2 of the report, to approve funding for the continued contractual arrangements with providers for 26-27, and to receive a direction, given that this has already been approved through the IJB, in relation to put those revised contractual arrangements in place, recognising, of course, that the IJB is not able to hold contracts in its own right, and it's the requirement of the Council to do that. So I'm happy to take any questions, but I noticed when I was talking there that Eric came in, so Eric will be happy to help with any questions that members might have round about this. But as I say, the recommendations are noted at paragraph 2, Chair.
Thanks very much, Craig. Yeah, I did notice that Eric came in during the presentation of that. I think, I know you'd bother with traffic, and the Cabinet totally sympathises, particularly if it was a Belfield interchange. Not that again. Eric, is there anything you wish to add? Okay, colleagues, any questions for either Craig or Eric? Eric, yeah, sure.
Thanks, Chair. Just, nothing specific for the paper, just for clarity. Paragraph 16, when it talks about a couple of the services stopping, that's because these services were previously contracted through the Health and Social Care Partnership, and the resourcing and that have been moved more centrally to Integrated Children's Services. So the resources for Whole Family Wellbeing Fund and the Mental Health Fund are still there. It's just they will be contracted in a different way. So rather than that, it's moved over. And so the resources are still there, and we will look how we continue to provide these such services, just in a different way through a more central fund rather than directly through the Health and Social Care Partnership.
Thanks, Eddie. Okay, colleagues, can we agree on recommendations? Okay, thanks for that. I think that concludes the meeting, does it?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you all for your attendance.